Stellar Fundraising Auctions presents Black Tie and Tails, brought to you by Sojourn Ventures and Greater Giving, and featuring your hosts, fundraising auctioneers Greg Quiroga and Devon Bell. Welcome to Black Tie and Tails, our auditory trip into the wonderful world of fundraising auctions where we share tales of triumph and tragedy. My name's Greg Quiroga. I'm your host. This is Devon Bell. He's my co-host.
Hello, all.
And it's been a minute. I'm going to own it. We missed a couple of release dates for the podcast. It's totally on me. It's been busy, but not without reason. It's been the busy season. I don't know about you, but I've done a few events.
Oh, yeah. I got 2 this weekend.
Yeah, I had 3 last weekend, and one of them was in Santa Fe, New Mexico. So always fun to travel. It is always fun to travel. And I had the travel day from hell last week, Devo. I learned some lessons on my travel day from hell last week and wound up taking the train.
Whoa, that's an interesting, unexpected twist.
Yeah, the train was cool. There's a train that goes from Albuquerque to Santa Fe. I couldn't get a rental car. Last minute, things went wrong. Don't need to go into the fuzzy details, but could get a rental car last minute and had to take the train. The train from Albuquerque to Santa Fe, $9.
Wow.
Has
cheaper than gas for the rental car.
Has AC, Wi-Fi, and power outlets. It was, I guess AC and AC.
I see what you did.
Alternating current joke for you out there. And the other big reason is we got the kid off to school.
All right. Well, good luck. And
yeah, Godspeed.
Time to Airbnb his room.
Everybody's like, "Are you sad?" And we're like, "Oh, no."
It's sadness, but tinged with glee.
Yeah, exactly. I was doing an event last weekend, and a donor, been doing this event since Ryder was 2. This donor now has grandkids who have gone to college, and so afterwards I explained to her, like, hey, we're he's off, and I said, and people keep asking, are we sad to be empty nesting? And like Michelle and I are kind of guiltily like, no, we're all like, we're ready. It's not like, oh, get the kid out, but like we're at that point in the journey where he's ready, we're ready. And she was like, Greg, nobody who's ever asked that question raised children. So here's looking at you, Gene. Speaking of, and that's really a bad transition, but let's just go for it because, that's what we're here for. One of the things that has one of the most indirect impacts or sometimes direct impacts on our job is decor, right? Like how people set up the space and how we and the crowd interact with the space have a big impact on the sort of the overall success of the event.
And I would say that the decor can be very impactful on the vibe of the event, right? And setting up the atmosphere. But it also, from our perspective as the fundraisers, it can be a help and sometimes a hindrance.
Yeah, and we'll get to the hindrance second, but let's start with the help because we've both done school events. I mean, a lot of school events over the years, but we've both done school events where the school repurposed its own space. And I know that you have a success story about a volunteer on the committee. And volunteers, like the people who do decor, oftentimes they're the ones who are going to judge themselves and the success of the event by how people react when they walk into the ballroom or when they walk into the green room, right? There are the people on the committee who are the diehard fundraisers, and they're going to judge themselves by the bottom line. Did we beat last year's record or not? Did we raise more in the auction? Did my auction lot do better? And then there are people who are like, they're very into how does it look? How are my friends going to feel when they walk in? And you had a great example of a woman who just took over the gym.
Yeah, well, we've both done plenty of gymnasiums and cafeterias and multi-purpose rooms because if you're a school, you most likely have a big space where a lot of people can congregate. Normally it's not adults, but where a lot of people can congregate. It wasn't necessarily set up with our kind of event in mind, so it can often be acoustically challenging. Definitely the surroundings are, you might want to cover up the basketball scoreboard, or you could time each auction lot either way. But I did a school in Marin where for a couple years they had a mom who was just magnificent, and she transformed that gymnasium. They often choose the gymnasium because, hey, it's free.
Right.
You're not renting a space, right? So maybe some more money can go towards the decor because you didn't have to rent the space in the first place. And she just had an eye for design and was inspired. And I think I did 2 years before her kid graduated out. And the space was...
The donor development pipeline goes two ways.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Trying to maintain continuity. Anyway, the space was beautiful and elegant and really lent itself to a kind of festive, fancy vibe, which is exactly what you want when you're going to get people to raise their paddles and feel like tall poppies. So yeah, it was great. She, like I said, you wouldn't have known it was a gym coming into the space. She made such good use of it.
And do you remember were there elements of the theme, like how she translated it into decor that tied it all together so well?
Yeah, you know, I think one of them maybe was like a harvest theme, and she did this big bunch of grapes using balloons. Just like, you know, just every time she put her imprimatur on something, it would just be beautiful and classy and well done. And telling that her kid ended up graduating out, and the next year it was noticeable, oh, this is a gymnasium, decorations thrown up onto it, right? So yeah, and again, I'll say again, is that the decor is very important, and people who are going to put a bunch of energy into the decor, God bless them, you know, that's a wonderful thing, but let's consult and let's think things through so that it is not only attractive and festive, but that what's going on isn't going to get in the way of the live program and specifically the fundraising. Yeah,
and with decor, I mean, you can spend a lot of money on decor, right? I mean, Stanley Gotti, the event designer and planner in San Francisco, puts on parties. I'm like, wow, that looks amazing. I wish I got to be part of that, right? I had an event planner when I was first starting tell me that she didn't like doing fundraising events because she didn't have the budget to create her vision. And I thought she was just kind of rude. And then years later, I'm like, oh no, I get it, right? Like she has a good vision, and the ability to realize that is often constrained by budget. And I did a school event, Marin Country Day School. Sonoma Country Day School.
Okay, we've both done them.
Yeah, we've both worked with Sonoma Country Day School. I've worked with Marin Country Day School for years and years and years, and that's a different story. But Sonoma Country Day School, you and I have both worked with Elizabeth, and their event is now it's at Mayakama, which is the lovely golf resort up the hill in Windsor. But they used to do Sonoma Country Day School used to do their event in their gym. And, you know, like we're talking gyms. And Elizabeth had this line on getting these tapestries, these huge canvases that she would hang in the gym, and they were massive. They're, you know, like 15 feet by 20 or 30 something feet. I mean, each one was just super huge, and they were painted tapestries, basically.
Are these from Europe?
She would have them shipped from Europe. Yeah.
Wow.
I was blown away. I mean, you have to order them way in advance because, you know, they're not, this isn't air freight, mind you. These are literally being shipped from Europe. But she did, like, one year we did a Moulin Rouge, a Paris theme, right? And you close your eyes and you picture Moulin Rouge, and what you see is the facade of the Moulin Rouge with the big windmill all in red and lights going up it, and you see women in frilly dresses doing can-cans and people gathered on the street and headlights and lights, and that was the wall. Like, it was, the whole place was transformed. It was phenomenal. I asked her, I said, where do you keep, because the year before it had been a different theme and it had been spot on. She totally like Hollywood, and there's the big Hollywood sign, you know, from Europe. And I said, where do you get this? And she's like, oh, I ordered this from this place. And she actually gave me the contact information. If I went and looked, I might be able to find that email, because I keep everything, because I'm a hoarder, but I might be able to find that email and look it up. But I was blown away. It was
right behind it is the folded up basketball bleachers.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Like coming down the, like, you know, dun. Yeah. Funny side story, that event, in the gym, big dance floor, big stage for the band, but the stage is so far back on the dance floor that the crowd is the front tables are far away and the back tables are ridiculously far away.
And it's usually way too high. Right?
Yeah.
Way too high. Not a riser. It's like
4 or 5 feet. Yeah. And so when that happens, I choose to do the auction from the dance floor if I can, right? If the centerpieces aren't too tall, which we'll get to.
That's a story.
Foreshadowing. But if the sight lines work, I'll do it from the dance floor. Preferably get a riser on the dance floor. But in this case, I was just on the dance floor. And so before the auction, I take off my jacket to expose my, fancy custom loud vest and do the auction in my vest. And when the auction's over, I put the jacket back on, and it's it's sort of Clark Kentish. Like it's relative incognito mode. I mean, and I'm walking through the crowd, and I accidentally shoulder this woman. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. And she's like, no, it's okay. Hey, you look just like the guy who was over there doing that. And I'm like, that was me. She's like, no. He was taller.
Oh. So have your ego.
Yeah. So, I mean, I was like, well, at least I have a big personality on stage, even if I'm not on the stage. We'll talk. Those are good. And there's other events that I do, you do, we do in gymnasium-esque settings that look great. I mean, I think one of the big secrets, and not big or not a secret, but I mean, one trick is to use light is not heavy in terms of how much you have to carry in and what you have to do, but a single light can transform a good portion of a wall or a room. And so using Boys and Girls Club of Sonoma, the Sweetheart Gala, they have held that in their gym as long as I've been working with them, and it goes back, 14, 15 years at this point. And they transform that gym. They hang chandeliers down from the top that hang low and make the ceiling feel lower. They dim everything. They use lots of,
up lights and down lights do wonders for ambiance.
And never, ever turn on the halogen lights that you normally would have on in the gym.
Sure.
Right? Never, ever. Like you and I both have done events at the, the Mendocino County Fairgrounds in Ukiah.
Oh, yeah.
And when they turn those lights on, it's time for a rodeo, not an auction. Oh, that brings us to our first sponsor hit. Black Tie and Tails is brought to you by our partner, Greater Giving. Transform your nonprofit's fundraising initiatives with Greater Giving, a global payments company delivering unparalleled support for nonprofits and schools for over 2 decades. From effortless event organization to volunteer empowerment and increased donations, their integrated solutions pave the way for success. Explore their offerings and gain access to a wealth of educational materials at greatergiving.com. Okay, so we alluded to it earlier, but I think if you were to ask every fundraising auctioneer in the country what is the bane of their existence, one thing would rise to the top.
Well, I would say pillars, but I bet you're going for centerpieces.
I'm going for centerpieces. And it's not to knock centerpieces, right? Like, centerpieces are an integral part of every table, right? They help bring the decor together. But oftentimes our needs and sightlines aren't the top priority for somebody who's designing a centerpiece.
Yeah, it happens over and over again in the consulting where we specifically say no tall centerpieces, and then somehow that memo doesn't get back to the person who designs the centerpieces, and then that means a certain percentage of the people, we can't see their paddles. But but again, I'm totally with you, is that centerpieces they're not bad in and of themselves.
Some of my most popular content on Instagram are pictures of centerpieces. It's freaking weird. People are like, oh my gosh, centerpieces. Like that hashtag centerpieces picks up a lot of traction for some weird reason.
Not only can they really enhance the vibe, right? And they can tie into the event, or someone who's a celebrity with that crowd makes them. There's lots of ways that they can be important and special. But there's the whole phenomenon of selling the centerpieces. Right? I've seen it before where, and I think we talked about this. It's riding that line. Are we milking them too hard? It can be a little cheesy, like one last cash grab at the end. But a lot of times, right? There's 40 of them, and they're either going to get thrown away or just sent home with the volunteers. So I've seen it as here's an opportunity at the end. hey, look at your beautiful centerpieces. They were made by so-and-so. Let's make this a gift that keeps on giving. If you want to take home your centerpiece, pick it up and it's $40 on your way out.
Right. Swing by registration.
Right. So
give me your paddle number.
40 centerpieces. That's $1,600 for the centerpieces.
Good math.
Yeah. Good monetizing there. And then the other way is that can be the subject, the lot for a table auction.
Oh yeah. Centerpiece auction.
Yeah. Where, you have one person at the table, either, chosen out anyway. They can vote for them. Sometimes people know who should be their auctioneer. And you have a little mini auction at the table for the centerpiece. And then you could have the table that paid the most get a bottle of chilled bubbly or something, but just a little fun moment.
The centerpiece auction, I learned centerpiece auction at an event in Anchorage, Alaska.
Okay.
And we would have the youngest person at each table stand up and be the auctioneer, which gets political after a few years.
I'm the youngest.
Yeah.
No, I'm the youngest.
Well, not just that, but it can be creepy, right? Like if everybody's pointing at one young woman at their table, and but the youngest person, we can stop on that path before whatever they have it, but their prize would be round trip tickets to Hawaii for two.
For the table that paid the most.
The table you bid on your centerpiece. If you're the highest bidder at your table, you win the centerpiece. If you're the highest bidder in the room, then you would win 2 tickets to Hawaii round trip. And you can imagine, Alaska in the wintertime, they get 4 hours of sunlight. Like going to Hawaii sounds perfect. And
the centerpiece is like mosses and light.
Yeah. Exactly. And the same woman would buy her centerpiece for $1,400 every year. And I'm buying round trip tickets to Hawaii, and I'm getting a write-off on them because I'm buying a $40 centerpiece, overpaying by $1,360. And nobody ever got gutsy enough to bid like $1,401, right, to try and take her down. Nobody.
It's a shrewd play by her.
Oh, right? Love it.
I'm buying the centerpiece, and in an unrelated story, oh look, it comes with tickets to Hawaii.
Yeah, exactly. And those centerpieces were thankfully of modest height. Because I think the joke that we're making at the beginning, but the reality is that oftentimes we'll get centerpieces that are beautiful and high and tall, and just sort of once I was doing an event once, and I communicated like, look, they're like, we're going to have these. I'm like, that's great. I need to be able to see bidders. And they said, no problem, you will be. And so it was like butterflies were relevant to the theme. It was like cocoon or growth or something,
yeah,
exactly. There was and the centerpieces were these metal stands that were very thin and very tall. So it was possible to see through the stand to the person on the other side of it at that table.
I like the thin. I don't like the tall.
At that table. Yeah. But then at the top of the tall, it branched out into this multitude of individual wires that were thin, right? We're still thin. But then on each wire are multiple butterflies, right? All monarchs, all these monarchs. And so
paddle-shaped butterfly.
You have this beautiful canopy and it was huge, right? Like each one was like easily 6 foot, right? Just big, beautiful canopy, and projected on the ceiling of the tent, and all over the walls of the tent were butterflies. It was thematically, it was on message and beautiful. And yes, those front tables, I could see all the bidders fine
underneath the butterflies.
Underneath the butterflies. What nobody thought through was because of math and geometry. As soon as you put a table behind that centerpiece, then suddenly subsequent tables were all blocking subsequent tables, and people are bidding through this forest of butterflies. And at that point, our job is to roll with it and make it as successful as possible. And so you make note of it with the crowd, and you roll with it. And like my joke is always like, hey, I feel like something's come between us. Oftentimes it's wait staff. Oftentimes a waiter will be serving a table, and I'll be like, hey, can I just, I'm trying to see right behind, but
that waiter a paddle.
Yeah, totally. But with the centerpieces, it was, super tall and overarching and beautiful, but oi.
So to your eye, it's a sea of butterflies with a paddle coming up out of it.
Yeah.
Like whack-a-mole.
Yeah. We're on auction safari in this sea of paddles of butterflies. And there have been plenty of centerpieces that weren't horrible. Right. I think we tend to, as people, humans specifically, we tend to really remember the negative stuff. Right. And I'm part of a Facebook group of auctioneers, fundraising auctioneers nationwide. And at least once or twice a week, somebody posts a picture. Oh, my God, these are my centerpieces this week. And at a certain point, it's like, yeah, I get it. It's going to happen on we go. Right. But on the flip side, when it happens, you're like, okay. Right. Note to self, like I got to put this one in the notes for the wrap up. Some of my favorite centerpieces, Baked Blooms in Marin County makes, I'll have to get you a picture of them. I'll have to show you a picture next time. Baked Blooms make these cupcakes that look like flowers, and they make centerpieces that are edible. And
like fondant sculpture kind of.
Yeah. But with not like with not so much emphasis on the fondant that you think it doesn't look good.
Right.
Like it doesn't look edible.
Cake
because there are those cakes where you're like, that's cool. I now I need a chainsaw to get at it.
I was hoping to eat it.
Yeah. No, these look delicious. And I've done events where all the centerpieces were that, right? And there was a lot of joy in waiting to everybody and go like, are you ready for dessert? Everybody's like, yeah. I'm like, it's on your table. And they're like, wait, what? And everyone's like, oh my gosh, those are edible? Like, we just thought those were sculptures and creations. But yeah, it was super cool.
In fact, folks, if you could eat the tall ones before the program starts, we'd really appreciate it.
Yes. Tall, edible centerpieces that are the second course. Breadsticks. Got any more centerpiece stories ringing around?
I would just say generally it's a perfect example of where is that the decor can be powerful and positive and add to the night's ambiance and add to the success of the event, but let's be thoughtful about it and make sure that nothing about it is hindering what we're trying to do, specifically fundraising.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many stories about centerpieces. Up in Portland, they had these 6-foot tall steel centerpieces that came straight up and branched out, and at the end of each branch, they had a candelabra, and it was beautiful. And also from on a stage, right? Like, oh, I remember, this is 14, 15 years ago. Phone cameras, I don't know what they were today, but I remember taking pictures going, I need proof of this. I need to share this with people down the road.
No one will believe it. It touches on the theme that just generally, you were talking about how those column of fire heaters.
Oh yeah.
That flicker.
Right. Yes.
Things that flicker. Like we don't mind if you give the spotter a pom-pom or a glow stick or something like that.
Please do.
But please don't have it flash.
Right?
Right? It's like the club. It's like epilepsy inducing. It's tough for us when we're trying to catch bids to have things that move and flicker and are like grab your eye visually. It's like the joke you do when someone's waving, like, hey, are you just waving to your friend? That's dangerous at an auction.
Right. Yeah. I almost sold an auction lot to the banquet manager last Thursday because she was like, hey, over here for, getting like directing where the wait staff was to serve the next table. And I was like, 30. Oh no, I can tell the difference. I can tell the difference. Speaking of tell the difference, you will be able to tell the difference when you rely on Sojourn Ventures. When your auction is in need of some international travel, check out Sojourn Ventures. They curate trips to Italy, Bali, Spain, and now Venice at reasonable. I know Venice is part of Italy, but it's new in their trips to Italy and Venice at reasonable consignment prices. They offer over a dozen curated packages that include round-trip airport transfers, full-body massages, yes please, daily breakfasts, in-home chef's dinners, and more. Your buyers will enjoy top-level concierge service and 2 full years to redeem your trip, all at reasonable consignment prices. Check out sojournventurestravel.com or look for the link in the bio of this podcast. So we've talked about like good and bad. I don't think we need to go into ugly, but we've also seen some examples where the decor was a wild success.
Yeah, absolutely. The decor is going to be important at your event because the people are going to interact with the decor from the moment they get there till the moment they leave. It's not just during the program.
Yep.
It's not just during the meal. Like, right when we tell a story, when we set the stage, when we set up the mood, the decor is going to be working towards that end the entire night.
Yep.
And so what an important thing to put some energy and attention into, to make sure that you're maximizing the efficacy of that aspect of the night.
There are a couple of events I can think of off the top of my head where the decor helped transport the crowd to a place where they were connected more directly to the mission of the organization.
Do tell.
And our goal as fundraisers is always to try and lead attendees on a journey that brings them to a place of emotional engagement and therefore giving, right? And so I work with Save the Redwoods League, and they did an event on Union Square, smack dab in the middle of Union Square, the big statue in the middle that goes straight up, the huge
column.
That was in the middle of the tent, right? They tented all of Union Square. It was in the middle of the tent, and they had, from the statue heading eastward, was a 600 person space, like 60 something tables all around. And then they had bifurcated it, divided the tent, and there was an entryway. And as you walked into the entryway, you couldn't see all the way into the tent. You saw like a short distance. And in that short distance, it felt like you were walking into a forest. I mean, they had like peat moss floor that you were walking on, and it looked like trees. I don't remember what they like. How I just remember feeling like, oh, this looks like trees. And they had, obviously images and whatnot, and they had fog machines that were running low enough to feel ambient, like feel like there was ambiance and not so overwhelming that you feel like you're in
a lot of fog machines in San Francisco.
Good point. And then you walk in and you feel like you're like, oh, you're entering, and it's dark, right? Like it's got this real like cool, as in temperature, vibe to it, like, oh, you're entering and sounds of a forest. And then you could go right or left. We make a choice, and you walk in and you get into the main body of the tent, and there on the big screens are huge projections of redwood forest, and everything is all and projected on the walls of the tent everywhere. It's just all, and it felt like you were, with the sounds of the birds chirping, and it felt like you were walking into a forest.
It's like didn't bring the event to Muir Woods, brought Muir Woods to the event.
Yeah, good call. And it really helped connect. Like, it didn't feel like we were doing an event in a tent on Union Square. It didn't feel like an event in a tent. It felt very much connected to the red. And the only downside that you pointed out before was like, it's just too bad we didn't dress up that entire sculpture like a tree.
Right, that middle thing should have been a tree. All the servers should have been dressed like Ewoks.
What time is it? Job. The job.
More bread.
Yeah. And then recently they did an event at in one of those warehouse spaces in the Presidio that doesn't feel like an event space. If you just walk in and you look at the place in broad daylight, you're like, oh, good luck. But they transformed it into a campground with a fire pit, LED, but with an LED fire pit with logs around it. And they had a camp store that they like very cleverly used swag from other events as take home for people. So you could go shop the camp store, and some stuff was really limited. Like there were only a few of the cutting boards. So I didn't take one of the cutting boards, but they had lots of hats. So I got a hat.
You got two hats.
Yeah, I got one. I got a hat for days. But I think like when there's intention to it and it attaches the decor leads you to the mission, it's great.
That's funny that you say that it was set up like a campsite, because that reminds me of an event that I did, and I'll just say it was for California trout.
Oh, yeah.
And it was in one of those shipbuilding warehouses at Fort Mason, where if you were to walk in, before they had done anything with it, you'd say, wow, this is a terrible space to do an event.
80-foot ceilings.
Yeah, the ceilings are so high you can barely see them. The acoustics are terrible, and
Arable.
it's big exposed metal beams that all look super industrial. It just does not look festive. And they also did a whole area that was like a campsite. They had a vintage camper VW bus all set up. I think they had the same fake fire going. They had a damn Labrador Retriever, an actual dog, old enough to just kick it there, and kick it on the AstroTurf and sleep most of the night. They had the bar. I don't know if they brought it in or they had it, but it was like a canoe. It was like a boat.
Wow.
So you got to order your drinks off the canoe. And and of course, their silent had lots of fishing related stuff.
Cal trout.
And so the whole vibe of the reception really got you in the mood to like appreciate the outdoors and appreciate fishing. And just really what an example in both our cases where the decor lends itself to the vibe of the night, lends itself to thinking and feeling about the mission of the organization.
Yeah. And when we sat down with Jonathan Moscone sat down with us, one of the things we talked about was as you were walking into their gala, like the decor every step of the way was very intentional about its messaging and about connecting you to their theater, which was Cal Shakes Theater at the time. The decor can have a powerful impact and the messaging. And I think if we were to try to summarize or do any takeaways, I mean, number one is just be intentional, right? I mean, I think we come from a place as consultants of always trying to make conscious decisions or encouraging organizations, make conscious decisions. If you're going to do something, like you can say you want to do something that we don't recommend and we're cool with it as long as we're knowing that we're making a choice, right? And so with your decor, make conscious decisions. Get your person who's making the centerpieces to understand sight lines and geometry. Have them stand on a stage and look and see what it's going to be like. I mean, because there's a fine line, right? There is a balance between creativity and functionality.
That's right. Just ask the Cybertruck. I think the way I say it to my clients is what we're after here is carefully planned spontaneity. And right, like
I love that.
We want it to be like a party that's just flowing naturally, and the guests don't know that we actually overthought and agonized on every aspect of what we did. And on this specific part, the centerpiece, the decor here, the camp store, like each little individual piece. If you asked a guest that night, hey, did you notice that? A bunch of them are going to say, no, I didn't even notice.
Right.
But one guest is going to notice, and another guest is going to notice this. And the more we give them opportunities to notice something that we intentionally put there, with an end goal in mind, that the more successful the event's going to be overall.
And narrative arc, right? Like, what's the goal? What's the goal? What's the story we're trying to tell? Where are we trying to lead people? How can the decor help transport them there? And to the point of pipe and drape can transform a space. It's not inexpensive, but pipe and drape can transform a space. The big events I do at Fort Mason, lots of pipe and drape.
Sure.
Lots and lots of pipe and drape. You know what else they have lots of? Lights.
Yes.
Up lights, down lights. And it used to be that if you wanted 3 different colors lights, you needed 3 different lights. And now with all these crazy, amazing LED technology, not only can you get every color possible on every single light in the room, but they're all remote controlled.
Yeah, there's somebody on a tablet doing it in real time.
Yeah, what color do you want behind speaker A, speaker B, speakers? Oh, the second speaker's wearing pink. Let's make sure that the colors don't clash with them, right? I mean, I've done events where every time I got on stage, the color was different.
Right.
It's cool.
Yeah, and we're all for all of that. Anything you can do for the ambiance and for the vibe of the night is positive. Of course, minimal spot, maximal house when we're on stage.
Right.
That can all be negotiated on the front end.
And if you're one of those people who just loves doing the decor and is going to feel judged by how it looks, hallelujah, we love you. Like keep on, you be you and keep doing it. Just keep us in mind while you're at it. And all of you out there listening, thank you for joining us for this episode of Black Tie and Tales. Devon, always appreciate you being here.
A pleasure.
And appreciate you as well. If you are just stumbling across this and wondering wondering, where can I get me some more of that Black Tie and Tails? You can find it on Apple, Google, Spotify, YouTube, and all the other places where you can find your favorite podcasts. And you can also go to blacktieandtails.com. And I think that episode 1 is all that's showing on blacktieandtails.com right now. So I apologize for that, and I will fix that. But thank you, listeners, and we'll catch you in the next time. Let's talk, you want to talk auction lots next?
We deal with those a lot.
But I'm bumped.
We deal with those.